My favorite part in the movie is when they said it's disclosure day and then disclosed all over the place. That actually happened in the movie, and I'm not even joking.
Ooh, snap.
I was excited for this movie. The premise that we aren't the only intelligent beings God created is extremely thought provoking. At least it would be if they had stuck with one direction for how to portray this. The first half made it seem like they were leaning more towards how aliens may or may not be a threat to religion. Really interesting. Our guy protagonist's girlfriend is scared on how this would affect people's perception on God. Eventually, she calls a nun and asks how an alien disclosure would affect her faith. And the nun is like, yeah, no, I'd be chill with that. And then halfway through, they pivot to seemingly make the aliens seem like divine creatures who pick these two quote unquote chosen ones that act as the bridge between the aliens and humans. Also interesting, the second option wouldn't really have been my pick for a movie, but it still would have been interesting on its own. But you see, they try to go for both of them, but the two don't really work together, which led to a disconnect. Okay, but now let's get into the ratings. If you're not familiar with my rating system, I like to rate a movie based on 4 categories, and 3 of those categories are based on a score out of 3. Those mean story, characters, and execution. If it had a perfect story, it would be a 3 out of 3. If it had perfect characters, it would be a 3 out of 3. And if the execution was just on point, it would be a 3 out of 3. And the score can go as low as a 0 out of 3, which is really bad. And then the last category, which is just a 1 out of 1, is whether I would recommend it. The Tate Plus approval. And that's just either I recommend it or I don't. All of these add up to a score out of 10. So if everything is perfect and I would recommend it, it would be a 10 out of 10 movie. Okay, there you go. That's how it works. First, let's get into the story. Like I said before, the first half of the film starts out pretty interesting and somewhat realistic, but later there's just too many plot holes for me to fully immerse myself in the second half. At that point, it just gets too magical for the sake of progressing the plot point. Plus, like I previously discussed, there were seemingly 2 directions for how this movie was going about aliens and their place in this world. This brought down the story more than the plot holes in my opinion, because I was just confused. 1 out of 3. Now, as for the characters, I was split on how I felt about the characters walking out of the theater. I thought they were fine, wish they did more with Daniel and Jane, but that could just be because I enjoyed the first half of the film more. In the second half, Daniel is present but takes a back seat, and Jane pretty much disappears. Margaret was clearly the main protagonist, especially in the second half, and was portrayed as a savior-type character, but it's not really explained why. Her connection with anybody and everybody, as well as her magical powers, just led to so many plot holes that it's hard for me to like her as a character. Emily Blunt did a wonderful job in this role, unsurprisingly, and there was a clear standout performance-wise. Yeah, no, the story brought her character down. I wish we had more closure with Noah. It's only ever alluded to his twisted motivation is due to his wife, but not really sure how or why. And with him just sitting back at the end and giving up, it just didn't really satisfy what could have been a deeper character for me, especially what I thought they were leading up to. Overall, they did well. I can't remember any of the characters' names, but that's more of a me problem. And my gripes were mostly with the story as a whole and not really the characters themselves. 2 out of 3. What about the execution? Well, it's a Steven Spielberg movie with John Williams music. The polish of Spielberg couldn't save a terrible story though. It makes fun movies, and at points this one is great visually and pacing wise. But even Spielberg seems to have bitten off more than he can chew with the ambition and scale of this alien movie. The CGI was terrible. Not sure if it was due to time constraints or underpaying CGI artists, but practical effects continue to reign supreme for me. John Williams' music was great. I'm a sucker for orchestral music, but this movie doesn't really do him justice. At the same time though, there were scenes where you could tell that this was just a paycheck for him, not his best work. The plot holes can't be disregarded in this section either, which sometimes points to poor execution. Like a car door just so happening to be open for the cameraman, or the car being unlocked with the keys still inside the car. And also that scene where they're being pushed towards the train, why don't they just turn the steering wheel or use the handbrake? Hello? Simple things like that just bug me. No denying it's technically well done for the most part, which goes without saying because it's a high budget Hollywood film. But honestly, as I look back, it's really not that well executed. I was going to give it a 2 out of 3, but honestly, now looking back, I have to give it a 1 out of 3. Now, do I recommend this? Does this get my approval? You would be surprised about low rating movies getting my approval, but this one, yeah, not so much. If you can get this on a streaming service you already have and have nothing else to watch, it passes the time and it's a great discussion starter if nothing else. But I can't recommend it with all of its flaws and its poor story. And overall, just disappointing for me. 0 out of 1. So yeah, it was originally a 5 out of 10 for me, but now looking back, It's a 4 out of 10 for me, dog. Pretty much the definition of mid right there. Highly passable. Disclosure day, more like failure day. Okay.